Patrick Allen, Politico. It is now time to turn the table with Margaret Brennan with CBS News. Margaret, let me get your take on sort of what's happening with Ukraine and also the president's response. He has obviously said that there would be consequences, but we're not quite sure what those consequences would be. Do you have a good sense of exactly what the White House is thinking if, in fact, the violence does continue?
Well, the U.S. is looking at condemnations and statements. The real pressure they're exerting is diplomatically behind the scenes, trying to build this Western alliance with the EU to get the protests to stop and try to help usher in a peaceful transition within Ukraine, because you do have this peace deal signed today, but the question is, does it stick? Can it hold until elections are held in the next few months? And is there enough support for it? Because this country appears to be ready to ignite.
But obviously, I think lingering over this entire situation is Syria and the president's previous red line policy, which perhaps wasn't exactly enacted the way that he initially said. Does that at all play a role in this in terms of how Ukraine and perhaps other countries view the kind of response that they hear from the White House?
What's interesting is take a step back, and foreign policy right now seems to be viewed through the prism of where Russia falls. Over in Ukraine, you see this push-pull as Putin appears to be trying to bring in some of these former Soviet states closer to Moscow through economic influence. The U.S. doesn't want that. There's not a specific strategic national interest goal when it comes to Ukraine, but the U.S. doesn't necessarily want to see Russia further emboldened, particularly when they're blocking the U.S. at the UN. They're not necessarily putting enough pressure on Syria yet to follow through in the chemical weapons deal. They're blocking action on a number of fronts. So, bigger picture, the U.S. is in this sort of strange chessboard situation here.
And because of everything you just mentioned, are we able, with regards to Ukraine, to read anything into that as to whether the U.S.-Russian relationship is getting warmer or colder at all?
The diplomatic answer to that is always, well, it's a complex relationship. Honestly, the U.S. has been facing off with Russia on a number of fronts. We need them on the Iran deal. That is someplace where the U.S. really can't sever relations and get into any real sort of showdown, because getting Iran to denuclearize or to give up what part of a nuclear program it does have necessitates keeping Russia at the table, part of this alliance to pressure Iran.
All right, Margaret, tell us about what we can expect to see on Face the Nation this Sunday.
Well, we're going to see, can this peace deal hold in Ukraine? We're going to have a live report from Kiev. Holly Williams from CBS is on the ground there. I'll be joining Bob Schieffer as well to talk about the policy implications. And Bob will be looking at what's happening here at home. Two very influential governors, Republican Bobby Jindal of Louisiana and Maryland's nearby Democratic Governor Martin O'Malley will be joining him. O'Malley's already said he's looking at a 2016 bid himself. So it'll be interesting to get his take on some of the big issues out there: healthcare, the field in 2016, and the politics of governing right now from his view.
All right, it's a great lineup. Margaret Brennan with CBS News, thanks a lot for joining us.